All right. Hi, everyone, and welcome to episode 5 of our professional perspective series of What Cause Inspires You. I'm your host, Alicia Gupta, and today I have with me Olivia Deka. What Cause Inspires You is a podcast founded for students ages 13 to 21 to be able to share the service they are doing in their communities. We recently launched our professional perspective series in order for experts in the field to give insight to our youth about how to make a stronger impact and accelerate social justice movements. Olivia Deka, 23, is an advocate for gender equality while being equally passionate about entrepreneurship development. She for Change is the intersection of her passion and purpose. She for Change is a nonprofit organization working towards empowering young girls to become agents of change. Their mission is to foster entrepreneurial leadership mindset in young girls to help them become leaders and change makers. Olivia hails from a small town, Tezpur in Assam. She's been a part of 2 other international organizations like Changemakers Exchange since September 2017 and Young Social Entrepreneurs Program of Singapore International Foundation since March of 2018. Olivia is also a TEDx speaker and is currently pursuing a 1-year executive MBA of Inspired Leadership. The podcast series will be available on Spotify and YouTube under Humanity Rising Voices. Ms. Deka, we are super thrilled to have you with us today. Are you ready to begin?
Yes, absolutely. Super glad to be here.
Yes, of course. So why don't we start off with why you chose to be in the social impact sector during engineering college days?
I think I didn't choose to be in the space. The space kind of have chosen me because, as someone from a very small town, I didn't even know that there's something called social entrepreneurship. So never really ventured into it but in 2016, few of my friends actually came up with this idea of starting a community-based tourism initiative back in my home state in Assam, and then also the 8 northeastern states. And it was a very interesting idea to me, and I joined them. That is where my entrepreneurship journey began with my friends, with my childhood friends. And eventually, as part of Ashoka and of course Changemaker Exchange, through all the exposure that I got, I realized that I am very much driven towards empowering young girls. And that is when and where I decided that this is something that I really want to do and pursue.
That's amazing. Yeah, and like you mentioned, not a lot of people know that social entrepreneurship is actually a passion and a career life that you can choose. And I think switching from engineering to that just goes to show that, what you do in college doesn't have to define where you're going to go in life. Every step of the way is a new process, especially for me who's just going into college. I think that's really important for everyone to keep in mind, that it's all a learning experience. But it's actually funny that you mentioned Ashoka, because I was just applying for the nomination for the Ashoka Young Changemakers. And they're an amazing organization, but can you tell us a little more outside of Ashoka, how your journey began, and tell us about your first startup?
Yes, so the first startup was a community-based tourism initiative in Northeast. So the first startup was a community-based tourism initiative in Northeastern region, which is the 8 states of Northeast India. And it's pretty much a place, pretty much a very diverse culture. We have a lot of communities, like almost 200 plus communities, different languages, different cultures. It's so rich that people generally don't know much about it. And it was a very surprising thing for us. So we decided that if people want to come to Northeast, they should experience Northeast, not just as a tourist, but as someone who, goes, sits with the community, eats their food, cooks meals with them, or play their sports, and like really experience Northeast for what it is. So we decided to curate a lot of experience tour packages where people could go and stay in villages, go for hikes, go for treks, and it was specially designed for young backpackers. And yes, that's where the journey of entrepreneurship started for me. But eventually I realized that I was more passionate about really doing something for women and young girls, and being a gender equality advocate, it was just something that I knew deep in my heart that I want to do. And that is why I started She for Change in 2018. And even when I launched She for Change, I was in my final year of engineering. My final semester, was approaching, and it was pretty much a very, like moment of epiphany, I guess, that I didn't realize it would grow so big or it would garner so much support. I didn't have that plan. As I said, social impact happened to me. I didn't plan the journey, but I have discovered a lot of things. So I think life is all about discovery.
That's amazing. Yeah. And like you mentioned, right, you didn't plan anything. It was kind of just rolling with the flow. I think you need to take that first launch and trust and hope that things will happen. And they usually do, with a little bit of effort and passion. But can you tell us a little bit more about the mission of She for Change and how it's grown?
Yeah, so the mission of She for Change is to empower young girls with entrepreneurial leadership mindset. Because as an entrepreneur, I realized one thing, that entrepreneurship is not a job role. It's not a, it's not a position. It's a mindset. So for us, it was important, and for me especially, I have been a very ambitious young girl, even in school. And I realized that my peers were not, especially my girlfriends, they didn't have such ambitions. Like, my ambitions were seen as very wild and and they were almost looked down upon. Like, I have been called those terms that generally leaders are called, women leaders especially. If they are being assertive, they are seen as aggressive. If they are outspoken, they're seen as bossy. And I have experienced that myself. So for me, the question was not why they are bullying me or why they are behaving differently. For me, the question was why is it that I'm different from them? And part of it, I realized as I grew up, was how we as girls are conditioned, how patriarchy is literally ingrained in us without us realizing. So the conditioning, the years and years of conditioning really plays a huge role. And it affects you when you grow up too, and when you go for a professional life, or when you are deciding what career you want to go forward, what education are you pursuing, are you going to pursue higher education or not. All of your life decisions are affected by how we grow up, how we are conditioned. So for me, that was the point. That was this years of realization, culminating together into She for Change. The mission is simple. It's that we need to empower more young girls to aspire for leadership. We need to not just, skill them with the with rise in automation and technology. Women's labor force participation is falling down, especially in India. It's dropping down. And the question here is that with automation, with technology, if women are so less in labor, in the labor force participation of women is so low, and women are mostly 95% of women, which is 195 million women, are in jobs that are in underpaid jobs actually. So with rise in automation and job losses, it's women who are the most vulnerable, who are going to be the most vulnerable. So for me, the mission was that we need to start young. We need to start when girls are still teenagers. We need to teach them what leadership is all about. And we need to provide an ecosystem for that. Not just skilling them, not just, giving them a skill training program, but how do we nurture an environment that actually enables them to take up leadership roles, which is provide them with internship opportunities, provide them with apprentice opportunities with women leaders, provide them with mentorship. And that's what She for Change do. It provides an entire range of support for young girls to grow up as leaders, which is mentoring, apprentice opportunities, and yes, also skill training.
That's amazing. Yeah. And when you're mentioning all of this, it brings me to two main statistics that pop into my head immediately, right? The fact that women are paid less for doing the same amount of jobs, right? The same task in the same position for the same company, but they're still paid less. and why, right? So that is something we definitely need to break, not only in the Asian countries, but in the United States itself. But the second thing would be kind of that psychological aspect of it, where if a woman actually stands up and is assertive, they're seen as bossy or rude. And I know in my short career, I faced that too, right? They're saying, why are you being so rude to me? Can you control your emotions? It's not taken the same way as if a guy was to take the stand. And that is something that is ingrained in us, regardless of whether we know it or not. It's a subconscious feeling that does affect you throughout
And
your
then
career.
experience that over and over and over in different scenarios, in different aspects of your life, whether in school, whether at home, whether you go with friends for a concert and someone is like, girls are more hysterical when they are seeing their favorite artist. They're seen as like that, and we are perceived as overly emotional people who cannot do our job because emotions are not good for job. So for me, it is the fact that women, we do not have stories about women. We do not see women leaders around us. Women are featured so less. Like even Wikipedia has like 17% of women profiles. So 17% in like Wikipedia. If you do not see women's stories, if you are going to a conference and you are only witnessing male panels, then where are we going to actually meet our leaders? Where are we going to meet our role models? So that is where the way She for Change functions is that we bring together a network of women who can serve as mentors and role models, and who can actually, so we are creating an environment with women, along with women leaders, to create that positive reinforcements, because out there is a lot of negativity, there is a lot of judgments, there's a lot of biases and stereotypes, and you cannot at once dismantle all of that, right? You cannot like change how the world functions. You cannot break patriarchy in a single day. But what we can do actually is that we can create environment which is safe for girls, which is empowering, which regardless of the stereotypes that they face outside, regardless of the stereotypes that they are facing at home or at school or at workplace, they have a place to come where they are always receiving positive reinforcements.
Yeah, and it's that community that allows them to then prosper and break into that bubble. And when they do go into that business world, they're ready to face those stereotypes with the more positive mindset that it's okay, it's not going to change over day, but it's something that we're working towards and something that we're ready to fight. And trust me, Olivia, I can go on for hours and hours about gender inequality. But that being said, you are one of those female change makers that are paving the way for other female leaders to follow. But throughout your journey, especially living in India, you must have faced a lot of obstacles. So can you share with the audience a little bit about those obstacles? And then on the flip side, who is actually there to support you throughout your journey?
See, obstacles, I think I can go on and on about it, mostly personal, because professional obstacles exist, gender inequality exists, of course. So you don't know how to actually dive into entrepreneurship. Especially, I come from a service, my family, I have a service background. My parents are doing jobs, so entrepreneurship is not a known concept to them. So of course they were very apprehensive of that. And other than that, I guess firstly convincing them that I am serious about this, that I'm passionate about this, and I want to do this for real, was the first challenge that I faced. But yes, I overcame that. Then being taken seriously at the age of 19, when you are going and meeting people who are much older to you, and making them take me seriously was another obstacle that I faced. After that, when I launched the organization, yes, of course, I had to choose between having a job and pursuing this post my graduation. As I said, I was still like in my college when I started the organization, and taking it seriously, taking it further, registering it was a challenge because I didn't know about the legal aspects of it. I didn't know the financial aspects of it. So I had to upskill myself, throughout the journey. Whenever I had faced any difficulty, I have faced any kind of roadblock, I made sure that I learned that skill. So continuously upskilling myself is also a challenge. Then of course financial aspects are there, because I decided to run this organization as a non-profit venture, and in India 60% of the non-profit funding has only comes through grants or donations. So because for-profit social the structure of finance, even for-profit social enterprises, still is equity and equity like investments. So the financial space for non-profit organizations, the different kind of funding opportunities are very limited. So yes, these are the professional and personal challenges, but I believe that us entrepreneurs, we really, we never bow down to any kind of obstacles. That is what the mindset is all about that I was talking. So, and I have realized that more than the obstacles, I have actually received a lot of help. I have never been rejected, or whenever I have told someone about She for Change, there is not a single person I have met till today who have not supported me. And there have been some very incredible people from the startup ecosystem in India. And yes, I mean, these people have guided me, mentored me. There are investors out there who actually funds, for profit startups. And these are amazing people in the startup ecosystem in India. And these are the people who have been guiding me and mentoring me, because of course, She for Change is a non-profit. We have not seeked any kind of external funding yet. We are a completely bootstrapped organization.
Wow, that's amazing. Yeah, and obviously you're going to have those people who are not as, let's say, liberal in the cause of female workers or even female entrepreneurs, but it's really great to hear that there is an ecosystem of investors and of supporters who are ready to further this change and this progression to female equality. But I can actually relate to a lot of those first initial statements that you made about being a South Asian female entrepreneur who's 18 or 19, right? I'm 18 and I have these big plans for these podcasts, and God knows if that's going to happen in time, but I'm really fortunate, especially in the US, to have such a big support system. But obviously that's not always the case in some other countries. So you can't really take that for granted. And especially when I see these young children, South Asian females in particular, and children of immigrants, their parents have a different mindset than the child. Actually, one girl recently came to me and said, can you talk to my parents? I want to go into business, but they don't see business as a career. Yeah, and exactly. I found that astounding. Like, here's a girl, same as me, right? We live in the same area. We're almost the same age. I'm just a year older than her, going into business as a degree. And my household has always been where business is a degree. My dad's an entrepreneur, right? So that mindset has always been in the family, but I didn't realize that it's not for everybody. So she told me to talk to her parents to convince them that business is actually a money-making career, which was surprising to me, but you get that all the time, right? So it's really breaking down those stereotypes and allowing that.
Yeah, and in India, not just parents of girls, not just parents of girls, but even parents of boys, they are very skeptical about entrepreneurship. The culture is just building up. So the socio-cultural barriers that exist for a woman is so large in India, that a young girl saying that she wants to be an entrepreneur is really like that stereotype really affects her, because that stereotypes exist from her family to the point where she is pitching for her startup fund. Investors are asking different questions to male entrepreneurs and female entrepreneurs, and it's so noticeable for us, but I am surprised at times that people don't notice that. And I have raised my voice multiple times when sexist questions are being asked to me, or things like what are things are being asked to women. Things like what are your future plans? How do you plan for your startup when you get married, or when you get married to someone and move out of the country, or if you get married and like if she's already married, then she's asked about her plans of motherhood. And these are the questions that male entrepreneurs never get asked. And for me, yeah, of course, the bigger picture, like there's so many problems to tackle, there's so many problems that we need to address. She for Change is trying to create that ecosystem where where that awareness is being built. And for us, the girls involved with our organizations, we really talk to the parents. We assure the parents, we take time to make the parents understand what is the need for learning about leadership, what is the need for, and still we face a lot of rejections. Parents are skeptical about just letting their girls even do a virtual program, and that is very shocking for me, because how will it harm your girl if she's just learning something online, right? But yeah, I mean, that exists. I think Indian parents are conservative, and they don't see or recognize the ambition of their daughters, and that is a very sad state of affair.
Yeah, I think it honestly just goes back to how they were brought up and the culture there, and that initial mind block, right? So there's some things that we have to accept and then just move on to figure out how to figure them out, take away that roadblock and that initial mindset and then pursue forward rather than change the people that we live with. I don't think any female is going to be successful in trying to convince their parents that their mindset is wrong or how they grew up is wrong. However, just then taking a stand and saying, you might think this way, but this is what I plan to do, and this is how I want to live my life. And obviously a respectful way is going to go milestones, right? And it is having that ecosystem to support you while you do that.
Yeah, there's so much, there's literally no literature around entrepreneurial leadership. It just started, and it's so interesting because if no matter what she wants to do in life, whether she wants to become a doctor or a painter, or she wants to be a professor, or she wants to be a teacher, they need entrepreneurial leadership, not just the mindset but also the skill set. Because if you are a doctor and you are doing a private practice, you need to know how to market yourself, you need to know how to market your business, right? And entrepreneurship is literally everywhere if you see it, and it's the need of the hour. Because if we don't teach these skills to the current, the students today, the teenagers today, then 10 years later they will be struggling to find a place in this world, because jobs that exist right now, jobs that they are preparing for right now, won't exist in the next 10 years. And the people who are not upskilling themselves, the young kids who are not getting the chance to upskill themselves and prepare for the future that is inevitable, and especially has, of course, accelerated because of COVID. I think with automation and with everything going digital, with globalization at such a far, the pace of globalization right now, people without skills won't survive. And for that, to actually be at a place where you are constantly upskilling yourself, you need to develop that mindset. You need to have that entrepreneurial mindset that is ready to go on and tackle the world. I think, yeah, I mean, it will take some time, but it will eventually happen.
Yeah, Olivia, I can already see that She for Change is like an amazing community aspect that's really furthering girls. But can you tell us a little bit firsthand your experience, how you've seen these girls prosper into young entrepreneurs?
So, I'll tell you something interesting. So I moved to Delhi because, of course, I had very little opportunity back in my hometown, and I realized that if I want to make a bigger difference, especially because I want to make a difference in every part of the country, I myself as a leader need to be in a place where I get those opportunities, right? So I moved to Delhi, and we did a couple of events here. We did a couple of community talks here, and one girl who attended it, she has volunteered for a lot of organizations. She was an extremely bright, passionate girl, and a few months later, she wrote to me this very sweet message saying, uh, I always knew I wanted to make a difference, but I was not sure how I wanted to make that difference. And being a part of the community, being a part of these discussions and these talks, reinforced the idea in me that I need to take a bigger step. And so I applied for this amazing fellowship called Gandhi Fellowship. And she said, I applied for that and I got through it. And I'll be now working with in this education, sector. And she is doing amazing work with government right now, like strengthening the education system and strengthening the infrastructure and the systems around government schools. So you never know how a small how a small action or how a small gathering can have a profound impact in someone's life, just because she felt for the first time that she belonged somewhere, her voice was heard, her ideas were taken seriously, and there were people older than her and younger to her who has positively reinforced the idea that she can go on and change the world. And so yeah, I mean, there has been those things, and right now we are doing a program. It's a virtual 3-month leadership lab where we upskill young girls, like we are upskilling 20 young girls with the 21st century leadership skills, from communication to critical thinking, problem solving, goal setting, time management, everything. And through the process of mentoring, of course. And yesterday, a little girl, 14 years old, wrote, I didn't know that you don't need a position, you don't need a title to be a leader. That I thought that if I cannot lead my class, if I'm not the class monitor, and now I realize that I can be a leader. Leader is just like leadership is just your mindset. You can take action and you can do things differently. And these little messages, this little change of how things are perceived and how little girls understand this huge word called leadership is itself, very, very surreal to me personally. There's another girl who never saw her mom being an entrepreneur, because her mom is like, she works for other people. Her father is a laborer, and so we went to the slum. We had this amazing session with these girls in a slum, and a girl told me that I never saw my mom as an entrepreneur, but she makes pickles and she sells it to the nearby community. And I never realized that she's an entrepreneur. And I'm like, yes, she is. She's earning money. She is making, bringing all these resources together, making pickle and then selling it. So, your mom is a leader and she's an entrepreneur. And she's like, I never saw her that way. So it's just how we are able to actually talk to girls of all age group about leadership, and the way their understanding changes post our sessions are incredible.
Wow, those are amazing stories. Honestly, really touching. And I think that just goes to show that it's one thing to have an idea and one thing to have a passion for idea, and it's another thing to actually take those to the real world and implement them. And I think we do take leadership for granted. When we think leadership, we think politicians, right? People of power in this economical and political scenario. But really, everyone can be a leader in their own way in their smaller communities. And I think that's exactly what we want to show, especially on this podcast. We want everyone, our audience out there listening and hearing that you can be a leader. All it takes is a few initial steps of turning that passion into progress. And people like Olivia and She for Change and What Cause Inspires You through Humanity Rising are here to be the platforms to support young entrepreneurs along the way. So that's amazing, Olivia. And we do have time for one last question. So for all of those young entrepreneurs or aspiring entrepreneurs, what advice do you have?
The only advice I have is that be passionate about it. do not chase an idea because it has a large market, or it's the new trend, or that, don't chase an idea because it is currently, it's raging, or it has a huge market scope. Chase an idea when you are really, really passionate about it, because the journey is difficult. It has so many ups and so many downs, and if you're not passionate about something, you won't be able to survive it. So firstly, timing plays a huge role in pursuing entrepreneurship, for sure. But you can beat any kind of failure, and you can rise up from any kind of failure, provided you are passionate about it. So yes, I mean, be passionate. And I follow a mantra, a personal mantra very close to me. So it's called go to bed smarter than you woke up. So if you learn one thing every single day, a new thing, and you know that you are going to bed smarter than when you woke up, you are definitely going in the right direction, and you are definitely, you are definitely on your path to leadership.
Wow, that was amazing. And my roommate and I actually do quotes of the day to keep ourselves on top of things. So I'm definitely going to add that one to our quote book. But thank you so much, Olivia, for this. It was extremely insightful. And for everyone out there listening, I hope you guys learned something about gender inequality and how everyone can be a change maker. That's all we have for today, but you can find more about She for Change at www.sheforchange.org. And look out for more episodes on our professional perspective series of What Cause Inspires You. I'm your host, Alicia Gupta, and I hope you all continue changing the world. Thank you.